order. It's July 22nd. It is 6:31 p.m. Due to the health and safety concerns related to the COVID-19 coronavirus, this meeting will be conducted by video conference or by telephone. At least the quorum board members is participating by video conference, calling in accordance with the provisions of section 551 of the 1.125 or 551.127 of the Texas Government Code that have not been suspended by the order of the governor. The subject is to be discussed or considered or upon which any formal action may be taken or listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown in this meeting notice unless removed. The consent agenda items identified within the consent agenda will be acted at one time. I now call this meeting to order. Mr. Morales, can you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Rocha, could you lead us in a prayer?
Yes, of course. Heavenly Father, we come to you asking for your blessings and help as we gather here tonight. We pray for your guidance in the needs of our district. Guide us with your wisdom and the spirit of joy. And bless everybody that's attending this meeting. Bless our Board of Trustees and their family. And bless our district and our community. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you. I'll also do roll call at this moment. I'll call out the names of the board members. Mr. J.J. Ibarra. Here. Mr. Chris Morales.
Here.
Mr. Robert Peacock.
He's here.
He's here. Mr. Tony Barco. I thought I saw Tony. Tony?
He was trying to log in.
Okay.
He won't be able to make it now for personal reasons.
Okay. All right. Mr. Robert Swanson? Robert on? All right. Mr. Rolando Lozano?
Here.
And Fernando Torres is present as well. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go. Were there any items from the public for open citizen forum?
No comment, sir.
All right. We're going to go ahead and jump into number 4, Superintendent's Report, Update on Maintenance Projects. Ms. Rocha?
Yes, tonight I just wanted to bring you up where we are with the projects. As far as the air conditionings in the gym at Garcia, OBJ, and JFK, they're about 2 weeks to be finished. Work is in progress, not completed, but in talking to Rudy, he said it would be about 2 to 3 weeks and they will be finished. Almost all the projects are completed. The chain link at Ibarra, work has been completed. The wrought iron fins at Ibarra also has been completed. The repairs and upgrade on the marquee at David Ibarra, work has been completed. And then we're in talking to Rudy on the plastic glass shields in the cafeteria and the offices around the district. Work is about 70 to 80% done. Almost in about 2 weeks, everything should be done. Rudy was telling me that there's more people as we start doing them. There's more needs for them, and he has to go buy the plastic glass. But in anticipation, in 2 weeks, we should be finished with this project. And then the servicing in the parking lots at RCR, that has been completed. And then increasing the numbers of sanitizing stations at our school, that work has also been completed. And the fixing the faucets and the water fountains and painting the district. The water fountains have been completed. The hand dryers have been completed. The district painting is work in progress, and they're doing that. And then the resurfacing at the stadium parking lot, currently we're going to have started the bidding process on that, and removal of the canopies and installations of the new junior high and Garcia work has been completed. And that's the report.
Somebody's dog didn't like the report.
He didn't like it. He said, how about my house?
Mr. President, just for the record, I'm here.
Canano, you're on mute.
All right, I'm sorry. All right. Okay, thank you, Ms. Rocha.
Yes.
We'll go to number 5, presentation COVID-19 related updates.
Yes, thank you, Board President, Board Trustees, and I want to apologize in advance. I apologize. It looks very impersonal, but none of my computers actually have a camera, so I apologize for that. So on Friday, we presented some TA update attendance and enrollment information. That was on Thursday. By Friday, TA rolled out some new guidelines, so we felt it important to send you that information. So there were the few updates. The first one is that remote-only instruction during the start of the school transition may occur up to the first 4 weeks with an option of extending 4 additional weeks. So the change there essentially is that now we have an option by board approval to go for additional weeks if we so choose, and a form does need to be submitted to TA as part of the requirement. The other change that they made on Friday was that under the hold harmless agreement pertaining to projected ADA, the ADA will be calculated using a year average trend from the 2017 to 2020 school year, instead of excluding the first 2 6 weeks, which was in the original report that we presented to you Thursday. So for us, that we had projected, the projection for the 3 years would be 4709.08. For the first year, we had budgeted 4,176. So if we look at that and based on those numbers, it would appear as if they don't change anything.
They can't see you here.
We would be at 100%. Okay, the next one is that if
Coach Navarro, could you mute your phone? Your computer. All right, Mr. Trump, we're sorry.
Okay, so just going back to that one, so the hold harmless agreement for our district is very advantageous, obviously. Next bullet is, in the event the district or campus is ordered to close and does not provide instruction, then the district will have to make up those instructional days or choose to forego the funding for the days that we are closed. So they are giving us that opportunity to make up the days that we miss, regardless of the reason why. The next bullet is the minimum attendance for class credit will be in effect for 2020-21, which essentially means that the students do need to be in attendance 90% of the time to receive class credit. The attendance for will be how we outline in our plan to the agency on how we are going to be keeping our attendance and in compliance with the hours that the students need to receive instruction, whether asynchronous, synchronous, or combined. And then the last one is the Governor Abbott actually put out a release on Friday as well. And what it is that TA will provide funding, distribution of devices, hotspots, routers. It's based on the specific needs identified by the LEA. The funding would be used to establish a reimbursement program with a matching fund component tied to the locally controlled coronavirus relief funds to the local. So basically what this is, it's a grant application. So we spend the money first and then they would reimburse us and we would apply to get that reimbursement. So those were the updates that were rolled out by TA and Governor Abbott as of Friday. Any questions?
Hey, you watching it now? You there? You there?
I don't believe that's a question for me, so.
I'd ask that everybody mute their lines unless they're presenting, guys. We're getting a lot of background noise. All right, thank you, Mr. Troll. Any questions for Mr. Troll?
Just to be clear on those 4 weeks, the very first bullet that we have, that's something that we just have to use in case. In other words, it's just as a precaution, right?
Yes, sir. Essentially, they're extending the opportunity for an additional 4 weeks if the board approves it, and we apply for the request through TA. We don't have to use it. It's just something that now they're allowing as an extra time frame for the districts to prepare or decide whether or not they need to go longer from the original extension if they have one.
Okay, but I think that our timing as far as our finish date, the end of the year, sometimes it ties into college schedule as well. So that would be something, I guess we need to just really look and see if we really need it or if we're going to be fine just the way we are.
What this entails, Mr. Morales, is if this is for remote learning. So we have, and originally they had said we had 4 weeks to do remote learning. Now they're saying that if you need an additional 4 weeks, you can apply for a request to those 4 weeks if the board so chooses.
Oh, okay. I get it now. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you again, Mr. Trump. All right, we're going to go to item 5B, presentation of COVID-19 Task Force Committee members. Ms. Rocha?
Yes, last time we met, you wanted for me to present the committee members. So I have a list for you for your input. We've got the city of Belsa mayor, the city of Ed Couch mayor, the medical provider, 1 elementary principal, 1 secondary principal, the interim superintendent, the business manager, the HR director, risk manager, transportation manager, maintenance manager, a parent for the elementary and a parent for the secondary, the bilingual director, food service director, technology director, planner, evaluator, chief of security, and athletic director. These are the people that would come together, solicit input, all the stakeholders that we have, so that we can make those critical decisions that we need to make as far as in regards to COVID-19. This is the recommended list. I presented it to you. Any input you want, we forgot somebody, or you feel we need to add more parents or whatever, but we hope to do this Zoom meetings so that we can start as letting our community and our parents know exactly what we're doing and to hear their needs as well, so that we can prepare for this coming school year.
All right, any questions on the COVID-19 task force from any of the board? Okay. Let's go to C, presentation on health safety plan. Mr. Reyes.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I'm hoping that you can hear me. You should have received a packet that was around 10 or 11 pages sent separately in your email address. I believe Mrs. Nelly Cavazos sent it to you. So hopefully you have received it, and I'll be following that. What I'll be presenting today or this evening is the district's health safety plan. It is how basically it was recommended by TEA for all districts to consider and to work with procedures that follow these guidelines. What I'll be doing is I'll be briefly touching base on every part of the safety plan. And as you can see from here, our goal is to make procedures. Basically, the safety plan begins with an introduction. It is basically going to center around on-campus and virtual learning, remote learning. It will talk about activities that take place on the campus or by remote. It will talk about or touch base on non-UIL sports and extracurricular activities and activities that are not being able to be performed at remote, but visitations that would require to the campus itself, and then how those procedures need to be set in place in order to provide a safe and healthy environment. It will center around 4 areas. One is to provide notice to the public and to the staff. It would also talk about prevention, which is a required practice to prevent the virus from entering the schools. It will talk about the response, which were the required practices that is needed to respond to the lab confirmed cases that might come to the school district, and some mitigation, which is nothing more than the recommendation and required practices to reduce the spread of this virus. And getting into the plan now, First of all, let's talk about providing notice. It requires that the district will provide notification to the public and to the staff itself. What we've done so far is that we've taken action, and I don't know whether you can see this, but it's more or less a flyer that might have been provided to you. It's been distributed to all the campuses, just reminding our staff to be safe, to follow the safety practices in order to work in our facilities, reminding everyone to be safe. And it has also been posted in our website, district website, so everyone could be aware of it. Also, any notifications of activities that take place in the campus, it is recommended that we give notification to parents and students at least 1 week in advance of any activities that will require attention by our staff in providing a safe environment. And it also has to be, there's an area there where you have to identify who at the campus level is district contact. And I've added myself there as my contact. I've added my email address and the phone number in which they can reach me in case there's questions having to do with this health plan. On page 2, it talks about the attendance, and Sandy already touched base on it. It states that in order to get attendance, a student must be present for 90% of the day in its course, and that's in order for them to get credit. It applies not only on campus, but it also requires attendance remotely. On page 3, we talk about the parent requesting means of instruction. A parent has a right to ask a district with a child to be instructed either remotely or on campus. If they request on campus, then we need to provide the means for that child to come to school. Now, that does mean, however, that in case we can't ask the parent that for the first 4 or 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, that they be receiving their instructions remotely before the district decides to offer on-campus instruction. We must notify the public and the parents, everyone, of their attendance rights and responsibilities. This is something that we're going to have to post in every campus, every facility, and went ahead and put it in the district website. We have, I believe on Thursday or Friday of last week, we did send a responsibility chart for all employees, and that went through their emails to all individuals, and it was also sent to all the campuses and facilities so it can be posted publicly so all staff members would be able to get familiar with their responsibilities that we have. We'll talk about prevention practices on page 3. And what this basically means is that all teachers and staff need to be screened on a daily basis. I can tell you that what we've done right now, the practice that we have adopted is that currently we have all our 230 and 226 working day employees already started their calendar year, and they began on the 13th, I believe, of this month. So those are the individuals that are presently coming to work at a facility that we have, whether it's at various campuses or whether it's a department that is standalone, such as the special ed department or the migrant department, the transportation department. They're all reporting to those areas. So what we've done, we've dispersed, distributed the infrared temperature thermometers. Everyone in these areas has one designated person that at the beginning of each day at 8 o'clock in the morning, as the employee comes in, their temperature is taken and it is recorded by that designated person. At the beginning of the week, they are asked some basic questions having to do with symptoms, having to do whether they have any fever, whether they are still have their taste and their smell. whether they have any abnormal feelings or not feeling very well, muscle aches. Those questions are stated or asked of every employee at the beginning of every week. From there on, this designated person documents it, and by 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, this document is emailed to myself, to me. All the departments, I receive them. And what I basically do, I don't basically look at every temperature of every employee. What this is just a means of myself knowing that it has been done in that department. So every morning, as an employee comes in, they're quickly being screened for some of these symptoms, and their temperature is taken. In the event that there is someone that has a temperature that is more than 99.4, or has described that they are having some symptoms that from the questions that we ask, our designated persons that we have in each campus are to let me know of a particular individual. I have stressed to them that these individuals at the campus level, they are not to play doctor or give any instructions to the employee. Their only instructions are to take the temperature and to ask basic questions. They are asked that if they see any abnormalities or anything that requires our attention, that they send it to me. Either they call me, they email me, or they text me. Once I receive an alert from an individual that might has a high fever, my job to quickly call our doctor in place, which would be Dr. Ochoa, and give him instructions about letting him know that we may have an employee that shows some symptoms, and I'll follow whatever instructions that he tells me. He might ask me to let this employee know to report to his office or to go to his doctor and get checked. But that is the protocols that we have currently in place. It is taking place throughout the district. Like I said, every department is at the moment reporting to me, and so far it seems to be working well. Secondly, it also talks about employees that might test positive. What are some of the actions that we must take, whether it's off campus? If we do have an employee that tests positive and brings it to our attention, it does state that we alert them immediately that they are not to come to work. They are to report to their doctor, to their physician, and they are to follow the guidelines of self-quarantine, staying away from everyone from our facilities. And they will not be permitted back into our campuses until he gets a clearance that's normally around 14 days. And they must get a clearance indicating that they are negative. And we're asking that we go a step further, that they go report back to their physician and to let us know that they bring back an excuse that it's okay for him or her to return back to our facility so he can continue or she can continue with work. But that is something that we're keeping track ourselves. Also, there are guidelines having to do with what happens with an employees that maybe in their household they have someone that has been tested positive, and maybe it's a spouse or maybe one of the children, and they report to us that they have someone at home and they are in close contact. We ask them immediately also to quarantine himself and to report to a doctor and to get himself tested. And upon his physician or his physician recommendation, if that is a recommendation of their physician to report back to work, then we'll honor the recommendation of the physician, the medical physician. But we are having those type of situations that we have now. Some of our employees are reporting that they have a spouse and therefore they're contained at home at the moment. There is talking about on page 4 about parental instructions for children that test positive. We have to have procedures in place as to what are the protocols in place. We need notification immediately upon their notification that they have a child that's positive. And we basically follow the same procedures that we normally have for our staff, is that they are not to come to school until they have a clearance from their physician to that, one, that they are negative, and two, that it is safe to return back to work, in this case, to on-campus instruction if he's a child that's coming to school. Individuals that have been suspected, I believe the document also talks about, still on page 4, individuals confirmed or suspected of the virus. They need ample time to be to recover. They need to show that they have improvements in their symptoms. Usually there is a 10 to 14 days wait period until that determination is made. And all the guidelines that we're following is the recommendations of the medical provider that the district has identified. So we're trying to keep those guidelines and protocols in place to prevent any entry of this virus into the campuses. On page 5, we talk about introductions to employees medically tested, because we have some employees that have on their own decided to go get tested. They didn't go actually to a medical physician. They didn't go to their doctors to get a prescription. They just heard on the radio or by means of the media that they were going to be testing at a particular site, and they just decided to go on their own and get tested. And in that case, if they get received that they got positive, they usually will bring it to us. They have to notify us. And at that point, we send them, since they didn't go to a doctor, we then tell them, we give them instructions that it is best for them to report to their doctor, report that they were tested positive, and get the medical assistance that they need, and also to bring us a medical excuse from their doctor saying that they are quarantined and that they need to stay at home for 14 days. And we follow the same procedures on these individuals. Once they are ready to come back, we won't allow them into our facilities until we get a clearance that they were retested and that they came back negative, and that we have a physician's recommendation that it is safe for them to return back to work.
Mr. Rojas, if I may.
Yes.
This is all with just employees on campus, right? This is without the students, or are all the protocols you're saying are once the students are in class?
This particular one is for the staff, but it applies almost basically the same for students that are coming to school on campus. Once we open our schools to instruction in the campuses, then we'll follow basically the same procedures. So once we find out that a child is positive, we will require that the child be taken to a medical professional, that they do get an excuse indicating that he is positive, and before he is allowed to come back into the campus back for instruction, which will usually be 14 days, that they do have a negative result in the second test, and that they do get a physician report saying that it is okay for the child to return to the campus. So we're taking. Go ahead.
Well, what does the state say about that campus? What would happen then?
Oh, it's further down in this.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'll get to it in a few minutes. The next thing is the response. What is it that the district needs to do to respond to this? Their practices to respond to a lab confirmed case in school. So number one, it just says that an individual that has been in school that has been confirmed we must notify our local health department. That's the first thing that we do when we find that there is a child that has been identified as positive. And that is in order for the school to comply with federal, state, and local laws. Also, we must close off the areas that child was in. That's why it's very important that once we open up our school campuses for on-school instruction, that we try to minimize the students from moving from one site to another. We try to minimize them so that the child will always be in the same location. If it's something that we can provide instruction, change instruction from one subject to another and have the child stay stationary, it's best, because once we have a child that has been identified as positive, we have to take action and try to disinfect all the areas in which the child has been in. And if we minimize the movement of children as they are on school, it provides us, it facilitates us the areas that we need to close off. Otherwise, we'd have to close up the entire school campus in order to disinfect the entire school facility. But if we restrict it to a specific location and students are used to just going to one location, that helps us tremendously in trying to clean up the area and disinfect. So that's a recommendation that the Texas Education C is putting on districts. It's just a matter of us following now protocol and putting them in place so that we follow these guidelines. We also, upon hearing, we have to notify the community of the situation. We need to let to know all teachers, our staff, the families that are involved where the student is located. So that is basically page 5. As we go on to page 6 is mitigation. And these are the practices in which we can take to help with the prevention or the spreading of the virus from one location to the other and from being transferred from one child to another. There are some things that we can do as instructional leaders, and that is we are recommended that we increase in the number of hand sanitizers that we have at the entrance of every campus, at the entrance of every facility, that we make these hand sanitizers and increase the number of washing stations, whether it's at the entrance of the school or whether it's at the individual classroom itself, because we can provide hand sanitizers in every classroom itself. They are encouraged to sanitize frequently and wash their hands frequently. These are things that we can do as district leaders, as teachers, as educational leaders, recommendation and students. Also, some of the recommendations is that we recommend that a student at least wash their hands, sanitize at least for 20 seconds or more. These are whether we can supervise them for them to take this precaution. We are encouraged to teach them the good hygiene of taking care of themselves, of practicing good hygiene. As a matter of fact, that is a requirement that on day 1 of school instruction, once we open on school instruction, that the first thing that we cover with our students on day 1 is the importance of cleanliness, washing their hands, sanitizing, of that nature. Teachers are encouraged that we inform students and everyone that if they're coughing, that they cover their mouth with tissue. If they don't have that available, to cough into their arm or elbow, but we need to follow those instructions as recommended. Also, other practices is that our sanitizing, that we increase the number of either custodians if we have to. It requires that our custodian will have to clean very, very carefully. In areas, if we are having students move from one location to another location, such as in the high school where we might have students going from one classroom to another on an hourly basis or 45-minute intervals, it is important that once one group of students leave, that we quickly clean up the area before the other group of students come back. So that's a recommendation. It's going to require a lot of sanitation, a lot of cleaning, disinfecting in the areas. They also talk about cleaning areas that are very commonly touched by students and by staff, which would be doorknobs, tables, laptops, computers. They also ask that we follow CDC guidelines. They have guidelines out there for educational agencies like us that can take precautions into sanitizing and disinfecting the entire areas. They also let us know that since we're going to be using these chemicals, it is very important that we have some kind of plan that these chemicals be kept in a safe place. We know that some of these chemicals might be used in the classroom when students change from one room to another, as they move from one place to another, that these chemicals are not left out in the open, because some of these chemicals might be harmful for products for students. So that's one area that they recommend that we take precaution with. The following page. They also recommend that instruction take place in open, if there's a way in which we can open the windows in our facilities, if we do have such a thing that our classrooms have a means of windows, that we open them, provide as much fresh air as possible so that air can circulate. I know that in some of the areas it is impossible. There are no windows that will open, but that's one of the recommendations, that if we do, that we provide open areas for instruction.
Mr. Riojas, has the district thought about making the classrooms negative pressure rooms, where the air that's circulating usually throughout the whole facility really just circulates maybe that room or those few rooms, and then that air is circulated out? I know that we're working on some there at the city of Elso, and they come with UV lighting. So as the air is being filtered out, it's being cleaned, but it goes back outside. I think that might be I know that not every classroom has windows, and it can get rather hot. I mean, it is South Texas. So something to consider and look at. And I also wanted to find out or ask if the district has thought about temperature scanners. I know that we've been looking at some. They're not too expensive. And I think the process that you're doing, I think it's good. I think you've done a great job. I think it might be a little convoluted because you're depending on somebody who's designated to take temperature, to fill out a form for every individual and then submit to you, which is going to inundate you with work and extra work. You already have a lot on your plate, as opposed to having a system that automatically scans employees as they walk in and submits straight to where it needs to go. So there's a time factor, there's extra work factor. I just think that this could simplify it and make your job a lot easier, make HR's job a lot easier, make the employees. Plus, there's a privacy issue too. Somebody tests a little warm or has a slight fever, that's going to get out.
Yes.
And there's significant privacy issues that we need to consider. So just look at technology to serve as to help you guys. There's a lot of other stuff out there. I know that you talked about having hand sanitizer, so I'm assuming you're talking about sanitation stations that are maybe mounted on a wall.
Some of them are mounted on walls, some of them are remote, that can be moved from one place to the other.
Yeah, but it's like a little stand, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And as a student comes in or as the adult comes in, they need to sanitize their hands before they continue on into the building. In answering your questions, yes, we have looked into these mechanisms that are installed, I think, at the entrances of every facility, and they're able to scan. I understand that they're able to scan anywhere from 75 to 100 within seconds. And if an individual is detected as with high temperature, it immediately gives an alert to us. So yes, we have looked into it, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we have ordered them already.
Mr. If I may interject, Mr. Riojas, I apologize. There's actually a presentation that we're doing on those temperature monitors right now. Shortly after you, sir.
Yes, sorry to interrupt. It's Justin with Kalal and Gimi. I was gonna present to you all that. We did a Zoom meeting with Christina Ochoa and a few other school board members. Whenever we get to that topic, I'll be happy to answer any of y'all's questions.
So as you can see, we are taking steps to introduce these new systems to make things easier, because as we are right now, yes, they are time consuming. In some of the campuses, we have over 200 employees. And on those campuses that have that many employees, we have to have more than one person taking temperatures at that rate. So we are looking at other means to take care of a large number of either employees and students, so that it can facilitate our means of detecting. As I go on, we are in trying to prevent this and inform individuals. We must provide posters and notifications on the walls, on areas where they are easily seen, to the students and to the staff, so that they know what the symptoms are and they can immediately let us know on some of the areas of concerns that they have. And like I said a few minutes ago, one of the requirements is that on day one, we need to start with instruction by giving a class subject having to do with the importance of cleanliness during this particular time, of washing their hands and everything. So that is the mitigation part, the part that we need to do to try to prevent it from making awareness of all, either not only students, but also our staff and also the parents that are coming in. It talks about health, requiring all students and staff to wear face masks or face shields. It all depends on how we decide on that. But that's one of the requirements. Page 7 also talks about schools. We must follow the governor's executive orders. So we must keep abreast as to what the health services and government agencies are telling the districts and the community to follow. We are required to have masks and shields at the appropriate level, because it may be that the face shields might not be appropriate at a certain grade level because of the age of the child. So those are things that we have to consider, but they do need to have some kind of covering. There will be situations where there are activities where the face mask or face shield will not be appropriate. And we might be talking about maybe an activity, maybe it's in physical education, or maybe there are other activities that the teacher may have formulated in the classroom. This is on campus, that this shield might come in their way. So they are recommending that in such activities, that these activities be done in small numbers of students, try to prevent a large number of students congregating together, that they all follow the 6 feet apart, and that we increase the necessity for hand washing and hand sanitizing. In areas where there's very little space, because in the classrooms, there are some classrooms that are a little larger than others. In areas where they are not sufficiently ample size, that might restrict too much of instruction, they do give advice to some of the districts that to utilize and outside learning, because they seem to believe that as long as there's air circulating, that's natural air, that is better. So if you are in a confined place, they give the indication that that's something that the district might consider to have instruction outside to reduce the risk of spreading. Page 8 continues with guidance on extracurricular activities, that we take guidance from all the state and the website, that we follow all the guidelines that they recommend. Of course, right now we're unable to have any UIL activities, but once that activity is given the okay, that we follow their instructions. It also gives instructions about facilities that have been closed for a long time, that we need to sanitize it pretty well so that we permit the students, if that's what it's going to be used for, that they come into a clean facility. It gives guidance as to giving protocol, that we must come up with procedures as how students enter or exit a particular facility, that we don't allow them just to, like at the end of the day, that we just stop instruction and give the students a dismissal and they all mass out together going down one hall, that we have some structure and we come up with procedures as to maybe releasing the students on a classroom by classroom means, but to have something in place to prevent the students to congregate together, to eliminate any type of assemblies, to minimize them as much as possible. If it is required, to do it at a very minimal number of students, and that also goes to staff. If there are other ways or other means to communicate with our staff that we consider technology means, whether we Zoom or any other technology means to relay messages back and forth, but to stay away from meeting as a group together confined in one room. They also make recommendations about lunch during mealtime, that it might be a best practice to have students eat their lunch in the classroom. It's already set up so that they're spread apart. So somehow our cafeteria staff would have to provide for either breakfast in the classroom and lunch in the classroom, and be prepared to distribute all of those items on a timely manner so that the students can eat at their appropriate time, and also follow the practices of staying away from each other as much as possible. The document also talks about on page 9 about transportation. It gives guidelines that we must follow having to do with sanitizing the bus. It talks about maybe having the necessity to increase the number of routes, because as it is, as you know, we sometimes put in anywhere from 50 to 60 students depending on the number of capacity in the bus. Well, that will no longer be possible. So we're going to have to maybe have buses take 2 routes and maybe up to 3 routes, minimizing the number of students in the bus so that they are ample 6 feet apart. So as you can see, when a bus takes 1 round and drops off all the students at their campuses, they have to quickly re-sanitize, clean the bus before they go back on for the second round. And that is something that needs to be done constantly. So we do foresee that it's going to be an extra expense. We're trying to find means to try and sanitize buses as quickly as possible, because we only have so much time, and we cannot spend too much time cleaning the bus. So we're looking at mechanism foggers that we can utilize and we can purchase that will do the job very quickly, so that we can have our buses up and running very quickly, so that they can make their second and up to their third runs if necessary. They do recommend that the buses move or transport students with windows open. They say that what you want is air circulating that is clean, coming from the environment, as opposed to having their air conditioning only and the same air being circulated within the bus. So that's a recommendation. They are encouraging schools that we encourage parents that instead of utilizing our transportation means, that they really think about maybe carpooling with other individuals and taking their kids to school, or maybe walking with their children to school. In those alternatives, as opposed to putting all the students in one vehicle. I already mentioned about cleaning the buses on every time that the bus goes and picks up children. They talk about visitations. We need to have protocol in place for parents that for some reason need to come to school. If we need to call them for whatever reason they may be, or they are visitors. On visitors, there are indicating that we limit the number of visitors if we're going to permit visitors to come to the campuses, and that if we are, that we have protocol in place, that we need to check for symptoms for these individuals that are coming in. But they are recommending that we limit the number of visits that individuals have to a campus other than parents. They talk about the staffing, our staff, that we do recommend that, of course, they do meet their work expectations. All our teachers, all our staff members have work expectations that they need to fulfill, and the agency is indicating that they still need to fulfill those responsibilities. That we train all our staff for protocol, and that is training that we would have to have with all our staff members having to do with the procedures that are in place. That we reduce the meeting of the staff in person, that we prefer Zoom meetings or other electronic means, that we adhere to the 6 feet apart and to meet in small numbers. One thing that they did talk about is our bathrooms, the facilities that we have in our campuses. That there may be a need to put partitions, dividers between sinks if maybe 4 or 5 or a handful of students go at the same time into a bathroom. That is something that's an area that we also have to look at. That in the sink areas and the urinals areas, that we must have some kind of dividers or recommend that we divide those things to keep the students apart from one another. And then lastly, the document ends with the symptoms. Whether an individual, whether it's an adult or whether it's a child, are you having fever? Have you lost your taste of smell and taste? Are you coughing? Are you having difficulty in breathing? Do you have shortness in breath? Headaches, chills? Do you have a sore throat? Are you shivering? Do you have muscle pain or do you have loose bowel movements? Those are all symptoms that we have to keep aware of and really keep an eye on that. If we see these things, that we go in and maybe confirm whether the child or the adult is feeling well. And lastly, the close contact. They indicate that the close contact in the way that they're defining it is that anyone that is not wearing a mask or a shield that might be exposed to someone that is positive, that they are within 6 feet of each other. That is too close for contact. So there's a lot of recommendations and a lot of guidance that have been offered by the agency that we are now asking that we adopt. And once we adopt, we can work with protocols and procedures to apply to all our staff and facilities that we have in place. And if there's any answer, I'm here to answer as much as I can.
Mr. Rojas, I guess another part of the facilities is to have our, of course, the sensors on the hand sanitizer stations. You just put your hand under it and it releases the soap. But also for our paper towels and our faucets, a lot of them you have to turn them still, and to try to make everything contactless. It'd be good to maybe have one the sensor. You just put your hand on it, the water comes out of the soap dispenser where you can wash your hands as well, and that way you really alleviate any of the contact. Maybe even the toilets, where they go off on their own after a child with the sensor. So if we're trying to go completely contactless, those are a couple of things that we can look at, maybe purchasing as far as our facilities as well.
And that's a good idea. Is that there are the water faucets that you just put your hands underneath and the water comes out. There's no need to touch any handles. And there are some hand sanitizers that you just put your hand underneath it, and the foam falls on your palm of your hand without mechanism. And those are things that we have to look at and see if it's a means that we can install to prevent students and staff from touching these items. Of course, that would be the best, but that's something that we would have to look at and see if it's feasible to install them in all our facilities.
Well, I guess maybe for the next meeting, if you can look over pricing and look at all of our facilities, maybe give Mr. Rodriguez and see if it is feasible, and that way we can start making the purchases and installing and have everything ready for when school opens up again.
And that may be correct. From the indications that I have, we have very few from surveys that we have been taking. It seems like there are very few parents that are gung-ho about sending their child to campus. So it may be that we may be restricting the toilet facilities, the bathrooms that they can use. So we might have to concentrate on those bathrooms that are going to be used. There won't be a need to furnish all the facilities with these type of faucets and sanitizers if we're only going to use a small portion of the building. So that's something that we're also thinking about, is limit the movement of students from one place to another.
Okay, that sounds good.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rivera. Is there any other questions for Mr. Rivera at this time? Again, thank you for the in-depth presentation. We're going to go ahead and go to number 5, presentation number D. Presentation on COVID-19, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, FFCRA guidelines by Mrs. Chapa.
Mr. Torres, I will be doing the presentation, and this is Mrs. Ochoa. The information is a brief synopsis of the data that was put out by the United States Department of Labor, and essentially what it delineates are the 6 categories in which an employee can participate or request leave under specifically the COVID-19 Act. So I'm going to go through the document very quickly. The first one is essentially if you're subject to a state or a local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19, you have been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, again, related to COVID-19. Number 3, if you are experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. Number 4, if you are caring for an individual subject to an order described in number 1 or self-quarantine as described in number 2. Number 5, if you are caring for if the employee is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed. And number 6 is experiencing any other substantially similar conditions specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So if we have any employees that fall under these 6 categories, then there are some provisions and paid leave entitlements in accordance to the wage and hour Department of Labor. So very briefly, the paid entitlement could be, for example, up to 2 weeks or 80 hours for a part-time employee's 2-week equivalent of paid sick leave based on the higher or the regular rate of pay, or if the applicable state or federal minimum wage is paid at 100% for qualifying reasons 1 through 3, or up to $500 daily and $5,110 total, or 2/3 for qualifying reasons number 4 and 6, up to $200 daily and $2,000 total. And lastly, up to 12 weeks of paid sick leave and expanded family and medical leave paid at 2/3 for qualifying reasons number 5, below for up to $200 daily and $12,000 total. So what we did as a district is we sent out, the next slide please. What we did as a district is we sent out the employee guidelines. Joe was instrumental, and he sent out a mass email to all employees. He also sent it to the campus administrators and directors so that they could review with their employees. And we have also posted the employee rights flyer, and that was through the help of Leo Hinojosa. He and his staff literally went and posted some on all the campuses and departments. So essentially, this is what the document shows: is what should you do if you have symptoms? What should I do if I have symptoms tested for COVID-19 or have been exposed to someone with COVID-19? As per our district protocol, you are to 1, notify your immediate supervisor. Your supervisor will contact the Human Resource Department. Then your Human Resource Department will direct you on the appropriate documentation required to be submitted. That documentation has also been posted as a link on the school website and has also been sent out as a mass email to all employees and their supervisors through Joe. Excuse me. What should I do if I test positive for COVID-19? As an employee of Ed Calchaus ISD, any individual testing positive must isolate and will not be permitted to return to in-person activities until 14 days have passed since their first positive test, are symptom-free for 5 days without a fever, have a negative COVID-19 result, are cleared for return by a healthcare provider or the Hidalgo County Health Department. The employees must apply for the emergency FMLA with Human Resource Department in order to be covered by this act. If FMLA is not used, then the local or sick days of that employee will be applied. The other slide is, what do you do if you have symptoms but you test negative? So the protocols there are 5 different protocols that EISD employees should follow. The first one is provide the documentation to the Human Resource Department if you have been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine due to COVID-19. You are to contact your immediate supervisor and the Human Resource Department. You must still quarantine until 14 days have passed. You contact your primary care provider for continued care, especially if symptoms arrive. And you must be clear to return for in-person work activities by the healthcare provider. You will also need to submit the same type of FMLA documentation if you plan to use FMLA. If not, then you would be docked your sick or local days. And just to give you a brief synopsis of where we are at, as of July 13th to July 22nd, district absences reported have been 17. COVID-related absences are 15. There have been 0 FMLA documents submitted. 1 person that has COVID-related absences has decided to use their personal sick leave. Pending documentations to apply for FMLA are 14, and then there were 2 individuals that were unrelated to FMLA. A quick note, since March, there have not been any type of tracking of absences. So from July 13th to July 22nd is when the process began. And these protocols are the ones that we are asking employees to follow. And as I said, they have been posted on the school website, and every employee has received including the applications and the paperwork that must be filled out in their emails, as well as their directors and supervisors. That's all I have for the presentation. Are there any questions?
I would ask Ms. Ochoa that you give us an update on every meeting to the board just to see where we're at as far as the number of people that are out and how many have actually used FMLA as well as their sick time. We have to make sure that obviously they understand it's serious to fill out the paperwork and then get submitted around the time.
Yes, sir, I will. Another, the business office as well as the Human Resource Secretary have started to call these employees to see, to ensure that they do know how to access the information on the website. But as a courtesy, they have been called to see if they need any assistance filling out the forms. We did actually translate the forms in Spanish as well. So now the forms are in English and Spanish, including the employee rights.
All right.
That's all from my presentation.
Ms. Ochoa, one last question.
Yes, sir.
When the employees go get tested, it has to be the actual swab test, right? Not the antibodies, correct?
Well, the thing with that is it's a twofold. The insurance will only cover the swab because that's the one with the most predictability. And as long as we have from what the results are, then it is up to I'm sorry, let me take that back. The medical healthcare provider, as long as we have the documentation with their diagnosis.
Okay. So the insurance only pays for the swab. Okay. But if they go out of pocket and they wanted the antibodies, what will we be accepting that?
Well, if the provider accepts it, then we would accept it. Because there are different types of antibodies and there are rapid tests that are out there. So it would behoove the medical provider to follow the appropriate protocols as per the CDC.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ochoa.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to 5E, presentation on personal protection equipment, PPE. Ms. Garza.
Good evening, board. I'm going to give you an update on the personal protective equipment that we currently have. So we received our Region 1 order that was coming from the Texas Education Agency. We actually received that yesterday, and our warehouse workers were gracious enough to go pick it up at Region 1. And so the supplies that we received included face shields. We received 726 shields. Sanitizer, we received 530 gallons. Gloves, 12,342. Thermometers, 37. And masks, total 28,378. We are estimating that these supplies will last an estimated 17 days, given the number of students that have indicated that they will be selecting a hybrid learning modality. Currently, our current orders for PPE, electrostatic sprayers that we have ordered for the buses and for disinfecting all the facilities. We are still pending this order, but the order includes 23 electrostatic sprayers and 1 backpack electrostatic sprayer for transportation. Additional plexiglass materials have also been ordered for from the maintenance department has ordered them to expand on some of the shields that they have put out throughout the district. Some of them were just partially done, and so we have ordered some additional material to be able to expand some of those counters and reception areas. Our current plexiglass installations, there are 18 different campuses and departments. They've already installed 11 of them. 4 of them are fully installed, and 7 of them only have a partial installation, and 7 that are still pending to be done. And I have a couple of examples on the next slide. This is the one at central office. We have completely put it all around the counter, and so this is a full installation. The next one that we have is JFK, and that one is a partial placement there, but we will order with the plexiglass that we order. We will put it all over around the counter of that desk, of that reception area. And then there's areas like technology that do not have any plexiglass yet, and so we're hoping that we get the plexiglass soon. But they are out here in the valley, so it had to be brought in from San Antonio. So we're hoping to get that done really quick as soon as it comes in. Now we do have some pending orders that we'd like to place, and one of those is a plexiglass for students and teacher desks. We're currently looking at some vendors that do provide it, but there are a lot of variations. Some of them are permanently put on the desk. Some of them are mobile and can be taken on and off. Some of them are disposable. So we're trying to look to see what's the best option for the district and to see cost as well, because if they're disposable, we'll have to replace them. And so in the long run, we need to see if that's cost effective or not. Also, we're looking into some temperature scanners for each of the campuses and departments, and we currently have read about Sherilyn ISD. They purchased some scanners, temperature scanners for their district, and so we're looking into the same purchasing the same type. There are lots of scanners out there, and we're trying to find the best one for our district. I have a short blue video on one of the many examples of some of the scanners that are out there, and I hope let's see, Mr. Torres can put that for me.
Just one more second. Try one more time. There we go.
That's just an example of one of the many that are out there. And so that's something that we're looking at. Some of the temperature scanners around this size, they can get pretty expensive. We've seen some as low as about $3,500 all the way up to $5,000. So we're trying to see if we can get some discounts from depending on how many we order, and we can get a good rate. And obviously also if they're in some on the purchasing cooperatives as well. So this is my my update on the PPE. Is there any questions?
Any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Garza. Now we're going to go down to the 5F update on student pre-registration and back to school strong started survey.
So last week we presented some numbers to you. And so this is just an update to what we presented. Last Wednesday, as of July 15th, when we presented to you Thursday, July 15th, Wednesday was the last numbers that we collected. And at that point, we had 1,437 responses to our questionnaire. As of today, we had an increase and a total now of 2,581 responses. So we went from 29% last week to 52% this week. And as expected, the responses are pretty much the same. We had 2,202 and 85% who are essentially saying they are going to opt for online instruction. We had 311 as 12% that are saying that they want to do hybrid. And we had 76% or 76 and 3% that are saying that they want to do in person. For the students with no internet, we did have an increase. We were at 400 and we now have 774 that are saying that they don't have internet. And we have 1,583 students who are in need of a device. On the next slide, for the pre-registration, it's the breakdown of the pre-registration totals online and on paper. There, what I wanted to just highlight is that for the summary of current online and paper registration, we are now at 3,025. In a week's time, we were able to register 380 students, so we are now at 61%. So it's an 8% increase in a matter of 4 days. And that's essentially the information that we have there. So the principals, the administrators, the curriculum department, the migrant department, it's been a true hands-on approach. People are actively engaged in making the calls and helping with the registration. So even people that are on vacation have been making the calls. So we're seeing the increases. It is our goal to continue to make these calls every day to get the information as to what the needs are for the students, what is preferred for the school learning style and the modality in which they want to receive the instruction for their children, along with actively ensuring that our students are pre-registered. Are there any questions on this information?
So just for clarification, right now we've got 3,025 students so far that are registered for this year's school.
I apologize, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. So right now, for the record, we've got just about 3,000 students registered for this school year.
Mm-hmm. We have 3,025. Yes, sir. That is as of today, so 61%.
All right, so we're 39% still behind, almost 2,000 students behind at this point.
Yes.
Hey, real quick, can I ask a quick, when are we coming back, or can we come back here pretty soon, possibly next week, with the instructional plan? I'd like to I'd like to commend everybody that worked on this particular plan. Mrs. Ochoa, Mr. Riojas, Mrs. Rocha, Joe Torres, everybody that was involved. Y'all put together great presentations. But do we have a timeline as to when we're going to come back with an instructional plan?
Sir, we actually already have an instructional plan. We are just going to wait for your guidance in terms of how you want the teachers to present themselves. Will it be remotely or will it be in person? The gifted and talented teachers, along with some other administrators, have been working extremely hard on getting the instruction placed on our LMS system to make sure that we qualify to do remote learning. We are already working on the application that has to be submitted to TA so we can secure our funding, but all of that is already in place. Just a matter of rolling it out as soon as we find out how, what the roles of the teachers are going to be as far as where they're going to be providing the instruction to our students.
Councilor Osama, would you like us to call a meeting for next week to discuss that further? Maybe or a workshop?
I think that would be great. I mean, that way we can at least let the community know, let people that want to log on, see exactly what the plans are, what the school district's plans are, show everybody's hard work, because I know it's been very trying times right now. We're running really thin, and I know everybody's working extremely hard, and it's there, and I'd like to just get it out there and let the community know exactly what's ready for their kids.
Yes, sir. You just let us know when, sir, and we will be ready.
All right, we'll discuss a date. All right. Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Ms. Garza, I just wanted to check. On there we had, and I hope you can hear me because I'm getting the signal saying my internet connection is unstable.
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Yes, sir.
Okay. We have a little bit over 1,700 needing a device. Is that one per household? Is that counting if there's 3 students in that household? Is that number telling us by student or is it by family?
So right now what we're doing is we actually have an Excel spreadsheet and that identifies the students, individual unduplicated count. However, if you look at go back to the report, Joe, please. We have in our district 2,956 families identified. When we finish all the phone calls, which we hope will be very, very soon, we are going to merge that data and we will then be able to tell how many children that are saying they need devices belong to the same household.
Okay.
So we will be able to get that information, but we first have to go one step at a time, and then we're going to merge all the data together.
All right. I'm just asking because those devices are going to be crucial when it comes to our students. I just want to make sure we have enough for each of them, if that's the way we're going to be going on the 101, or we're going to do one per household or house.
Yes, sir. And we will be rolling out that information. What we can do for the next presentation is start to merge the families as we go along.
Mrs. Ochoa, on the devices that Mr. Morales is talking about, who is the service provider? Because I know that AT&T covers a certain area, Verizon covers another area, and if I know that there's some areas in Elsa where AT&T just doesn't work well. Who are we using? Joe, would you happen to answer that question, or who would know?
Sure, absolutely. We're currently using T-Mobile. That's what we're using. And so what we've noticed is that we pretty much have a good signal here within the cities. We start heading north, like into the Mile 18 towards Hargill, we start losing signal. We start headed towards La Villa and those outer edges, we start losing signal. But at the same time, AT&T and Verizon, we also start losing signal out there.
What about the Mile 12 area?
We have experienced some signal loss. We do have a couple of systems out there that are T-Mobile that we're using at the Learning Center, and those seem to have worked pretty decent. It just depends on how close whoever's further out from the tower gets worse of a signal. But the ones that we do have at the Learning Center have been working.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Now we're going to go into G, presentation of the 2020-2021 budget. Ms. Garza.
Okay, board, I'm going to present the proposed budget and tax rate for 2021. This will be the first budget workshop we have. We want to start with the comparison of ADA. If you could switch the slide, Mr. Torres. Okay.
Ms. Garza, real quick, if we're planning on having a workshop next week, could we throw this in there? That way we can have a little more time, because I know we've been bombarded with quite a bit of information, and if we could have this so we could look at it and then properly ask questions at next week's meeting, would that be? I mean,
yes, of course.
That would be good.
So can I'd like to make a motion to table this item and bring it over to the next meeting.
We'll make sure we include it, John.
Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion to table this item and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Again, Ms. Garza, Ms. Chola, Ms. Rocha, let's start looking at a scheduled date for next week so we can look at the instructional
We'll get
plan.
together on that.
Yeah, we'll add one of the items.
Ms. Rocha, if it's okay, if you could share the PowerPoint with the board prior so they have time to review all the numbers prior to the
Yes, we'll try to get it done before so that you all can have plenty of time to review it.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you, Ms.
Yes.
Garza. All right, then we're going to go ahead and go into number 6, consent agenda items. Are there any questions at this time for the consent agenda items? No, then I need a motion.
Motion.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Lozano, second by Mr. Ibarra. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We're going to go ahead and go to number 7, discussion action items. 7A, discussion action item, action to approve election order of regular school board election. Mr. Castillo?
Yes, Mr. Board President, members of the board, this is just the normal action item required. As y'all know, we have a coming regular school board election in November. So basically, this is just that order calling that election.
So move.
Second.
Right, there's a motion by Mr. Ibarra, second by Mr. Lozano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. And just for the record, it does us good to see an old Mercedes Tiger wearing an Eckhart Joseph shirt.
There you go.
Looks awesome.
Okay, now 7B, discussion and action to approve purchase of hotspots from cooperative vendor. Mr. Torres.
Yes, sir. Let me just go ahead and get the screen up and running. Let's see. Okay, Doug, so I'm here in front of you. Good evening, by the way. There's been so many changes here in the past week that things are so fluid, to take words from Sandy. Things are changing, seems like on a daily basis or weekly basis. So this item, I asked Mrs. Rocha and Sylvia to see if we could put it on there, because currently we have about 450 hotspots that are SEPA compliant for Children's Internet Protection Act, and we do have them through T-Mobile. And those are the ones that we ordered for the summer school. Not all of them worked as well as we thought, because we had those areas that we don't get a signal to, but a large majority of them worked really well, and our kids were able to use them. I was able to go into the classrooms, and I was able to see those teachers zooming with the students and accessing their daily work. So what's going on right now is that the state, the Governor Abbott, Dallas Independent School District, TA, has come together and has brought in about $200 million that they want to use for devices, and was presented earlier in the meeting. And so I wanted to share that with you so you can get some ideas of what we can do, and so we can make a decision if we want to go out and buy additional hotspots. So the pros for piggybacking off this partnership between Abbott, Dallas, and TA is that it's possible state funding. It's $200 million. It's not going to cover everything and everybody. So what will end up happening is that we will probably get a portion of it. It may not be the entire amount, but we will get some of it. And that's one of the pros, right? The cons is it's not a guaranteed amount. Nobody said, hey, this is what you're going to get. This is what you're going to be able to spend. They're kind of behind the curve here. There is no order or delivery date been released, and the vendors that I've seen, they've used they're looking at 2-year leases, and they're only saying that the first year is eligible for funding, and that would be if we went through the Operation Connectivity. If you were to approve a purchase tonight and we would go directly through a vendor, I've already spoken to the vendor. It's about a three-week estimated time of arrival. Because things have been changing, they originally said 5 days ago that they would only cover purchases from May 21st to July 22nd, which is today. And then I read today that the governor put out that they were going to cover now to September 1st. So if we were to purchase directly through our district, they would reimburse us on a one-to-one basis. So for every dollar that we spend, they would apply their dollar. Again, limited funding. We may not be able to cover it 100%, but there'll be money there to help alleviate some of the cost. So those are some of the cons. Let me show you the next slide. So this is what the connectivity group out of the governor's office has given us. For AT&T, they've got a 1-year unlimited plan for $15 a month. For T-Mobile, they've come up with a 2-year plan, but only the first year is eligible for funding, and they also are at $15. And then Verizon is at $10, but there are additional fees. There's a $6 device cost, and there's a $5 charge additional per unit that would be charged for the tagging and getting the device configured properly. If we were to look at going out and purchasing our own, and I'll just use 1,000 as an option here to consider, 1,000 hotspots would be $240,000 per year at cost for the district. Mind you, we would be eligible to apply some of this cost, if not all of it, would get completely funded at half the price because the state would reimburse us half of it. Or we could choose to go, let's say, 1,000 at AT&T hotspots through the state connectivity plan for $150,000. So that's where we're at right now. Let me stop the share. I'd like some guidance on what you would like to do.
But you're saying that the AT&T does not give us good reception everywhere.
No, well, AT&T doesn't give us good reception everywhere. None of them do. I mean, I have AT&T personally on mine. I've had Verizon, and now that we have T-Mobiles, I've tested them. And depending on the different areas that you go, you may have signal or you may not have signal. So we have to have the contingency plans for those students.
My question is that now that we have up until September 1st, do we think it's a good idea to bring back this item during the budget meeting once we're reviewing the budget next week, or what's the stance of the administration at this point right now? What are you asking us to?
The only thing would be, we have preliminary numbers on how many students in internet devices, and it's at 7 students. We're approximately, let me mute that. We're approximately at 774 devices that are needed. We have currently 400 in place, 450. So if we were to just extrapolate the data, we only have half of our students registered. We could conceivably grow up for individuals that need internet access at home, double that, because we're only halfway there. So we'd be at about 1,500 students with a need of devices. And that's where the 1,000 kind of sort of played in. So if we get another 1,000, we should be pretty close to being able to give the students that need the internet access that device. If we do choose to bring it back, just remember that the more time we wait, the longer the lead times. Once the Operation Connectivity puts their order in for the entire state, it's going to put a halt to anybody ordering devices on their own. Correct. That's the dilemma. I have crossed the numbers with Mrs. Garza. She says that we should be able to support a lease option with them. Okay.
So what's the recommendation at this point?
My recommendation, sir, if you're willing to go with it, is that we go with the AT&T through the. I apologize. My recommendation is I would like for discussion and see if we can come to a consensus. Because if we go through AT&T through the internet connectivity program, we may not get until maybe November. What about Verizon? Same thing, because this is a plan that the state's putting together. If we go through our district, it'll be more expensive, but we will get reimbursed. I'm hoping a large percentage, and we can get those in 3 weeks.
will get reimbursed?
A large percentage. I cannot guarantee you that it'll be 100% because they still haven't figured out how they're going to fund this.
I say we go that route.
Board President, if I could interject.
Yes, Mr. Reference, you have a question?
Yeah, because I'm preparing the Easter grant right now, and some of these items may be purchased through the Easter grant, especially the hotspots. And I'm including in there the possibility of paying for the leasing of it, the monthly incurrence expense of having these things active. So that's an item that you need to know that it may be possible to include these expenses for the purchasing through the Easter grant, and we're scheduled to get at least 0.9 million. So I've made an appropriation so that in case we need supplies, we will be able to use this grant in buying Chromebooks or other supplies that are needed for distant learning. I put their money so that we could pay the reoccurring monthly costs of maybe the hotspots. It's just a matter of the agency approving it. And right now we are in the process of maybe submitting by the end of the week.
What's the approval process? How long does that take, Mr. Reference?
The approval process is sometimes a lengthy process, but they're making exceptions. Some of these items are already included in the grant itself, that it's an acceptable expense. So it does have a pre-award. Once we submit the grant, any expenses that we have incurred from the time of, I believe, March the 13th to the present, and it has been paid out, we can ask for reimbursement. And from my figures right now, we're going to be asking for about $198,000 back, and that is for payroll, for expenses that we had for support staff working during this time of closure. So we should be getting that money reimbursed back quickly. The rest, anything that we purchase from the moment that we submit the grant, it is able to be reimbursed as it is approved. So it may not be an entire expense on local, but it may be something that can be incurred into the grant.
Okay, so back to Mr. Ibarra's recommendation then that we go this route. There's an opportunity here to be reimbursed.
Just to be sure, we have two plans, Plan A, Plan B. We also have what provider. So there's two parts to this motion, right? This item.
There's two parts. So Mr. Ibarra's motion is what you're stating.
So I guess, Joe, who is your recommendation for the provider?
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile, and you've had good experiences with T-Mobile. I mean, I've had T-Mobile in the past, and I've had AT&T so far. Now that I have Verizon, I get the best service with Verizon.
T-Mobile is pre-merged though, so it's different.
Yeah, they merged with Sprint,
which was another not so popular provider with service.
Yeah, I've had all of them, sir, and there's certain areas that it just doesn't work, no matter which one you have.
So for clarification purposes, the motion would be to go with T-Mobile and the option to get them here in 3 weeks, which would be, which option?
Purchase locally. We purchase locally.
Purchase locally. That's my motion.
All right, there's a motion by Mr. Ibarra that we purchase local, utilizing T-Mobile as the provider. I will need a second for that motion.
Second.
And it's been second by Mr. Lozano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes, guys. All right, Mr. Torres, you got the marching orders there. Thank you. All right, so then now we're going to go ahead and go into the next item. Here's discussion, possible action to select SHAR's third-party billing company pursuant.
Mr. Torres, I would ask that this be moved to the next month so that it was enough time to rank the bids.
Okay, so I need a motion to table at this time.
Second.
All right. There's a motion by Mr. Lozano, second by Mr. Schwartz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Then we're going to go ahead and go into item 7D, discussion possible action on Railroad Avenue extension along the Ibarra School eastern property line.
Mr. Castillo requested this pen to put it on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Rocha, Mr. Board President, and members of the board, the city of Elsa reached out, wanting to, city of Edcouch reached out, wanting to present on this item. And I believe, their engineer is on here.
Yes, this is Eddie Sines, on behalf of the city of Edcouch. The city, I don't know if everybody received, a schematic of what we were proposing. I'm gonna see if I can share a screen or not, but what we're proposing is we're trying to extend Railroad Avenue from 107 all the way to mile 17. And currently the alignment would go along the east side of the Ibarra school property. There is currently there is a ditch there that the city owns, and they'd like to put the road over that ditch, and then ask the city they would consider providing the to replace that ditch just west of the proposed roadway. There's sufficient area there for the school district that they have just an open land. So the city is requesting that there could be an agreement that we could move forward if it was feasible for all of us to go ahead and make that road connection. There is nothing as far as a road that connects 107 to mile 17 between mile 4 and mile 3 west. So there would also be a relief route for that.
So, Mr. Sines, I guess what exactly are you asking from the school district?
We're asking to see if we could get favorable consideration to move forward with this before any additional work is performed on there. The city, I believe, is trying to go through urban county funds, which would be funded next year to use those funds, but going with the schematic, get with urban county, do environmental assessment for this property, and then move forward with the design of the city.
Is there action need to be taken, Mr. Castillo?
I mean, I'm trying to determine what the agreement would encompass. Is it for a slice of land or what?
Yes, eventually, yes, this would eventually require a strip of land around 50 feet along the property line to be able to accommodate this roadway and also the relocation of the drainage ditch that would run parallel to it. It's an existing drainage ditch.
Okay.
So if there was a consideration, then we move forward it, and then, maybe work with, at your direction, with the facilities committee and make a presentation. But they just wanted to get some sort of direction in whether it was feasible and amenable to.
So it would be basically a right-of-way times?
Let's say that again?
It would be a right-of-way, essentially?
Yes, a right-of-way.
Okay.
But is there anything in writing?
No, I guess that would come eventually once, if there was everything came out, we would present it to the facilities committee, and then we would move forward with any sort of agreements.
So you're looking for authorization just to continue, correct?
Correct, yeah. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
A second.
All right, there's a motion, Mr.
But
Lozano.
this is just a consideration, right? They're still going to present all the paperwork and documents, that way we can review, see what it is exactly they want.
Correct, sir.
An agreement.
All right, well then there's a motion by Mr. Lozano, seconded by Mr. Schlosser. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sines.
Thank you.
All right, it's number 8. The superintendent requests that the Board of Trustees convene a closed meeting as authorized by the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. This executive session is in accordance with the Texas Government Code 551.074 for the purpose of discussion, personnel, considering appointment, employee resignation, retirement, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline. And B, consultation with legal counsel regarding any pending or contemplated litigation, settlement offers, matter in which the duty of the attorney of the Justice Independent is under Texas Disciplinary Code for professional conduct, which is 1, level 3 grievance or presenter Ben Castillo. It is now 8:11 p.m. We are now in executive session.
back from closed session. So in item 9, action item discussing item 8, action regarding personnel considering employment, resignation, and evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, and dismissals of a public officer or employee.
1011, Bobby.
For the record,
Ben, is Ben on here?
Yes, I'm here. Mrs. Rocha, can you state your recommendation, please? And it's essentially just as we're discussing.
Yes. As discussing in executive session, approve the ones that we discussed, okay?
I motion for approval.
All right.
second.
All right, so Robert made a motion, second by Mr. Ibarra. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Item B, we have a discussion and action regarding consultation with.
Mr. Chairman, it'd be item B1.
It'll be what? I'm sorry.
Item B1, the next item for consideration.
Okay, item B1. Okay, discussion and possible action on the level 3 grievance.
Yes, sir. So at this time, the board could make a motion if it sees fit. Okay, seems, I'll ask one more time if the board wants to make a motion. Okay, so no action on the level 3 grievance.
All right, so we have no action on item B, number 1. Next item we have is item 10. Do I see?
For what, Chris? I'm sorry, it broke up there.
Item 10, we have adjournment. Item 8.
So second.
All right, so meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
God bless you all.
God
Stay
bless
safe.
all of you. Stay safe.
Yes.
Thank you.